few observations, and I think it's really good that we're doing this. But the superintendent had mentioned reallocation of resources, and they're in the back there. Is there any discussion of what would be reallocated out of? Because
we are not prepared to do that at this meeting.
and so that's one of the things that interests me. Another one, and I don't want to take the time, is, as the result of this, some sort of discussion of what you've learned and what you will do differently because of this process. And again, I don't want to take the time tonight, but it's something that very much interests me.
I can talk a little bit about that.
Any additional question?
And then one of the things I would like to keep in mind is what I find often is we identify a problem and we identify a solution, but often there's no attempt to compare the scope of the two, and so we'll have a solution that's much smaller or just nibbles at the edge because we want to do something about it. I'd like to really try to grapple with that issue of whether the things we're doing are of the sufficient scale to, we'll have disruptive students and we'll have a little program to take care of some of the disruptive students, just as an example, that the sense of, is this a big enough or the right size, and if it's not big enough, maybe we shouldn't even be doing it. We should be doing something else. Does that make sense?
Director Falk, Director Thompson, that's actually brilliant, because it's exactly the types of things that we're thinking about, because you can do something, and Director Bonds actually is proposing something with an area dealing with transportation, and you can do something in a pilot, and then of course you have to understand, is the pilot big enough, and then how do you take the pilot and implement it full scale? So whether that's doing something with transportation, or right now I talked about the number. I'm not going to give you a number because it might not be wrong, but it's somewhere under 1,000 of kids that are 2 years over age in grades 6 and 7. And we know that these children, I'm looking at their names now because I got them. Here they are, these kids in this thing. I think it's like 480 kids. We know who they are. Here they are. These kids, we know, are probably 90% chance that they're going to drop out of high school, because they're sitting right now in 6th and 7th grade classrooms 2 years behind. And they will be over 16 years old going into 9th grade. So we know that, right? We know that if you're going into 9th grade at 16 or older. So now the question is, we have a group of kids, so what do we do with them? Okay, and what resources do we put to them, and what do we track with them, and so we can get them into 9th grade, because we know that these kids are going to have a hard time to graduate from high school. So if you're going to really significantly improve the performance of our children, significantly improve the graduation rate, because that's what we need. We don't need just small gains. Then you have to approach this stuff in a whole different mindset. You can't just look at all the children in the district and all the schools in the district and think that you're just going to improve it all together. But it's what you do in parts, one kid at a time, one school, these groups at a time. And then how do you take that strategy and how do you then ramp it up to scale so you get the impact that you're looking at? And what is the right group, and what then does scale look like? And then you have the capacity to do that. So those are all the questions that we're asking ourselves, we're looking at, because this work can really transform the work of the district when you look at it from a whole different lens than just saying you're seeing all of the kids and you're just doing the same old thing for everyone.
The final point I just kind of make, and again, is when I look at the metrics, they're pretty incremental, and I just want to encourage us to find disruptive kinds of changes that make that jump, going from the gas car to the hybrid or something, as opposed to, well, we're going to tweak a little and hope we get the graduation rate up a percentage or something like that. And what I'm not suggesting is we jump the metrics up, but we look for the kinds of things that would allow us to jump them up.
And when you're talking about jumping them up, you're talking about creating systems outside the system, because if you're trying to get significant incremental changes within the existing system, people will tell you that's very difficult. So that is a challenge, and we'll talk about that, because that has to do also with resource allocations, because if you're allocating resources the same way for all kids, and you have a group of kids that are really struggling, then what do you do to reallocate additional resources to a certain group of kids to then significantly jump those kids to another place? So that, we'll talk about that in the second phase of this board meeting, of some things that we'd like to do for next budget.